All right. Very nice to have you. Thank you, Dani, for giving me time today.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm
So
so
exciting.
excited.
All right. So, Dani Johnson, poet, businesswoman, pendulum reader, diviner, so many things, so many things. When you describe yourself to people, how do you describe yourself? Or
Well,
if you had
now,
to, I mean, typically we don't, nobody asks us, please describe yourself. But if you had to,
right.
how do you think of yourself?
Um, well, now that I'm older, I would say I first say writer, actually.
Hmm.
And within the last few years, I've become more comfortable and accustomed to talking about the other things that I do, like the pendulum readings and all of that. I do find a way to throw in there that I'm also a business owner. Pretty proud of that. It takes a lot of work.
And it's very exciting because you own a bookshop slash gift shop
hmm
in your town, Sharon, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
And again, I'm going to link to all of this in the episode description so that people will be able to find you. But I do want to talk about that because, owning a any business is difficult, but owning a bookshop is just the dream.
Yes.
We probably all of us at some point have been like, oh, if I could own a bookshop.
Yes.
Um,
That was
so
me.
that's exciting. How did that happen?
So, okay, a few years ago, I opened a shop in another town about a half an hour from where I live now, with two other people, and it went off really well. But just, I don't know, all of the things happened that needed to happen. And I was able to close that shop and open up a shop close to home, literally like a minute and a half from my house. And the space is phenomenal, but it's just me. I am the only owner of the shop. Uh, and inside, I have 17 local artists. So everything in my shop is made by local people. And it's not like a craft store. Not that there's anything wrong with, the Hobby
Sure.
Lobbies out there in the world, but I when people walk in my shop, I want there to be a difference between walking into like a second loved shop where they can find antiques and knickknacks. Everything in my shop is made with such an artistic view.
Hmm.
It's incredible. And the most recent artists that I've just added to the shop, I mean, their eye for things, wood burning, the creativity behind it. I have extensive, like beautiful woodwork, sun catchers with the most beautiful prisms, tarot, homemade, like handmade tarot boxes, altar boxes, shaman sticks. Like, I mean, wow, it's
Yeah.
really cool. And the bookstore part of it is new for me. That is something I decided to do when I opened the shop by myself because I am an avid book reader, like obsessed with
I
books.
knew that. I didn't realize though that the bookshop aspect of it was new to this shop that you're
Mm-hmm.
running by yourself. Well, that's very interesting. Very nice.
Yeah.
And I do have to say, there's so many cool pieces from your local artist in that shop, but I covet some of the altar boxes and the tarot boxes that one particular artist has done. And I can't say enough about them. Um,
Thank you.
but I did want to, one thing I did not mention off the top is that you are in fact a witch.
Yes.
And I do want to address that a little bit before we kind of move into your writing. So how did that go for you? When did you come to know or accept or realize that you're a witch?
Okay. I've hmm. So I knew very early that something was different about me. I'm not going to say odd or weird or unusual because in the end, once we grow more into ourselves, we realize that's actually like the best part of
Hmm.
ourselves. But when I was younger, I had a very intense imagination. And as I got older, that never left me. My want for curiosity and imagination never left me. And when I was younger, probably 10 years old, I shared a beautiful relationship with a dog. Her name was Totem, and she was half wolf and half husky. And she was my best friend, and we spent every waking moment. And while during our friendship, while I lived in South Dakota, she was in a really bad accident, and she wasn't able to move around, and they expected her healing time to be a really long time. But because it happened during summer, I was off from school, so I was able to spend literally every waking moment with her, and I did. And I could go on and on about the things that we did together, but long story short, she was completely healed in less than 3 months.
Do you
And
feel,
so,
oh, go ahead.
well, I don't know. I feel with animals, I always knew I could understand them. I've hugged trees for as long as I can remember. I talk to insects,
Hmm.
and I don't know. It just always felt earth always felt natural. Animals
Hmm.
always felt natural. And so once I read more and looked into things as I got older, I was just like, well, I mean, this is me. So,
So it was like you got a little older and you were like, oh, there's a word for that. There's a
yes,
word for what I do.
yes. Long story short, mine are never short, but yes, that's it.
Fair enough. That makes sense. And I think that probably happens with a lot of us to, in different ways, whatever it is, um, you being able to find, a true familiar and, a soulmate in this dog at such a young age, and then coming to understand it as you grew up. But that is something that I do feel like most of us in our own ways kind of come to. It's not like we decide to go be a witch. It just really is eventually we just kind of realize, oh, yeah, that's what that's called. That's what I'm
Yes.
doing. That's what I've been
And
all this
not,
time.
yes. And my mom raised my sister and I to, look into whatever works for us, so we can understand all aspects, and whatever, we want to go with, we go with. But nothing ever felt like home. Everything else made me feel actually really uncomfortable.
Hmm.
And I never felt like I could be myself. And once I started doing more research, reading more books, and actually practicing and being conscious, like I was actually already doing many of the things and I had no idea. And so once I was conscious of that, it felt like home. It felt like the best place, and it felt like I knew it already.
Okay, so not like discovery, but like a rediscovery or remembering,
Mm-hmm.
kind of. Very nice. I like that. Um, so writing is such a huge part of what you do. It is how you self-identify. Um, what part does that play, or has that played a part in your craft?
Um, I would say honestly, my craft has given me more guts when it comes to my writing.
Okay.
I feel that the more I've tapped into my craft, the more confidence I have,
Mm.
and it has honestly brought me out of the shadows. It truly has, in the best way possible. Just in the fact that I didn't even really put fully my writing out there until 2017, and as like me.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of funny though, because a lot of the things I write rhymes. So it's hard for me, like when I'm casting spells, I have to remind myself, Dani, you don't have to rhyme. It's fine. It's totally fine. You can just like write it out, girl. Write what you're thinking, write your intention. Like it's fine. But yeah, I think honestly, I've written my entire life, and what's come out in the last few years has more confidence behind it, and the unwillingness to be quiet about who I am anymore.
How does that how does that work with being a business owner and in the public eye to a pretty significant extent, at least in your local area. I know that you're very active in your community, especially among, small businesses. Has that, to what extent has that played a part in how you express yourself openly in your work, in business?
It's it's an interesting question. Um, I think some don't know what to make of me,
Hmm.
but that's kind of been my jam my whole life. I've rode that train forever because what do you do with me? I don't know, you know.
Hmm.
Um, but honestly, I think people see more of my character and in fact realize that if there is anything they're thinking or want to say, that it is a judgment because I
Ooh, very nice.
I come off very respectful and kind, and it's not fake at all. I am people refer to me as their sunshine. So
Hmm.
I am naturally optimistic and just kind of like, hey,
Hmm.
when I'm in public. Now I need a lot of time to recharge from all of that,
Well,
but
you are a Cancer, so
yes.
got to come back into that shell every
Yes,
once in a while.
often actually. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, I do, and there is a reason that we're here specifically to talk about your practice, your pendulum practice. There are so many different methods of divination, and you know, it's impossible to be an expert with all of them. It just takes time, as you've got to really work at it and practice with it, and just find those one or two or three methods that really align with you. How did you come to pendulums as your preferred method?
Honestly, my niece, she brought one over one day and we did a little reading, and I realized in my plethora of my collection that I actually had a pendulum. And so, yeah, one day I just decided to pick it up and see what happens. And I was like, oh, hey, we're all here.
Well, you know what? That actually is a really good segue into a question that I wanted to ask too. Where do you feel those messages come from when you're doing a pendulum session for either well, let's ask that, let's make that two questions. When
Mhm.
you're reading for yourself, where do you feel like those messages come from?
When I'm reading from for myself, I wholeheartedly feel like it's coming from my guides.
Okay. And then when you're reading for someone else, where do you feel like those questions are coming from? Or,
Intuition and psychic ability.
okay. Very
Only
interesting.
because after doing them for so long, I am finding that the answers are coming out of my mouth before they present themselves with the pendulum and the board. So,
And I just have to say, Miss Danny has done two or three readings for me.
yeah, two or
Two or
three.
three, I don't remember,
Yeah.
but I without a doubt 100% can attest that Danny will answer the questions just before the pendulum starts telling us what the answer is. She already knows. So that actually makes sense. And I did wonder about that because I know that you do work with your guides, you work with deities. Um, what which deities are you working with currently?
Ooh, okay, this is really exciting. So my main guy, his name is Yah. He was the moon Egyptian god. So, that's my love. He's with me all the time. And in a past life, I was actually married to him. Um, let's see who else. Hecate, Aphrodite, Adonis, Artemis, and Athena.
The gang's all here.
Yes, yes. And on top of that, I have some family members, pets and humans.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's nice. It's nice. I never feel alone.
Do you feel when you're doing readings for yourself and you're working with your pendulum and you start receiving these messages, can you can you tell at least sometimes who's answering the question in the
Yes,
roster?
yes, and no.
Okay.
Sometimes they don't they're sometimes they don't like to come out and give you like a straight up answer that you're hoping to get. And so they're gonna like be kind of smart ass about it, like
I do know. Yeah.
but the other day I was doing some communication, and like I just said, I have animals and humans here.
Hmm.
um, and the other day I was doing some, and I was sitting on the floor in my room, and my pet who I lost last year, her name was Sweet Pea, she rubbed up against my hip, and it was just so nice. I needed that at that moment, hey, I'm here. So it was pretty cool.
That is very sweet. I love that. How do you how many pendulums do you currently work with?
One.
One. And
Hmm.
is this is the same pendulum like since day one?
Hmm.
Okay. How did you develop that connection with it?
Oh, just holding it a lot, spending a
Hmm.
lot of time with it, talking to it, um, thinking about it. When I'm not with it, I miss it.
Now, you said I
So,
want to go back to something that you said earlier. You said that you first like worked with a pendulum because your niece brought one over,
mhm,
but you had already had one. How did
mhm.
that end up in your possession? Like how did it come to you? Where did you
My
find it?
mom.
Where did you buy it? Your mom bought it for you?
I believe it was given to my mom as a gift,
Hmm.
and then she gave it to me.
Okay, okay.
It was a plethora of things, like sage bundles and
Mm.
crystals and all kinds of stuff, and it was just like in the mix of it. And I was like looking, rummaging through stuff, and I saw it, and I thought, oh, okay, let's see what we can do with this.
I
And
have, go ahead.
oh, I will say too, I did work with tarot
Hmm.
before the pendulum, and I do love tarot. But for me, I gain a lot more for
Hmm.
myself and for the people I read for, I feel, in a different way that really works for me.
Yeah, and that I do understand that. I sincerely do. I mean, I've done tea leaf reading. I've done just a dabble, just a hair in like palm reading. I
Mhm.
I do tarot. And I do work with pendulums, but it does feel like there's always just going to be one or two methods that you align with really well.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I have pendulums. I actually have a few. I've got one that's like fluorite. I've got one that's brass. I have one that I love. Um, I don't think I could get it without making a big mess. But it's just like a little glass pendant, and it's got some ashes from my dog Dexter are
Oh.
inside it, and I work with that one a lot. So, but I don't know. I so pendulums obviously for you are like that's your main man.
Hmm.
I'm still, I work with them and I do feel like I get a lot of good results with them, but I haven't, I don't know that I've found my one pendulum yet.
Hmm.
So I just wondered, but that's interesting that this pendulum has made its way to you, that it passed through a few hands to
Yes.
get to you. What
Yes.
what material is it made of?
Crystal.
Like quartz or
No. I think it actually might be, it's quartz, but I haven't figured out exactly what kind of quartz.
okay, fair enough.
It's
God
like
knows there's
a
plenty.
peachy milky quartz.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
yeah. And I recently just purchased a new pendulum for someone close to me,
Hmm.
and they've been using it recently, and it's pretty cool watching their journey.
Um, what do you have? Okay, is there when you're going to sit down and do a reading with somebody, do you have like a ritual before you begin? If not, and not, some long drawn out thing. Probably that's not really realistic, but like, is there some kind of ritual that you do before you begin a reading to kind of get into that
Um,
mind space?
I cleanse my space, cleanse myself. I cleanse my board and my pendulum with usually Palo Santo.
Hmm.
Um, and then I light my incense and I just kind of open myself up to, you know, whatever wants to come through. And as of late, I've been putting your third eye opener oil on, and that's
Fantastic.
it works wonders. And yeah, so my process isn't anything really crazy. It's just, cleansing and I don't here personally in this home, I have a lot of wards and things set up. So there's definitely not anything getting in here that
Mm.
should be.
That I was going to ask about that too. Do you ever feel like do you ever feel like you have any party crashers in your divination sessions? Like people that you don't expect or entities that you don't expect to come through that just kind of like pop in? Or do you feel like your wards are so tight that it's like waterproof, nothing's getting in there? It's
Well,
not
it's
invited.
funny. I'm really happy that you asked that actually, because my wards are tight.
Hmm.
Like as far as there's no negative energy entity evil coming through.
Hmm.
Anyone who has any bad intentions, they're not coming through. However, where I live, which will probably follow me if I ever move, my house is very busy. I do have a lot of guests staying here. It's only myself and my two fur babes that live here, but this house is very full. I do have a lot of people here that linger.
Hmm.
Um, and also, recently, I wanted to bring this up too. Recently, I did a reading for someone, and the very next day, I was doing some communication, and I always ask if there's a new presence here because it's kind of just become my thing,
Hmm.
because like people just pop in and out all the time. And there was a new presence, and it happened to be the mother of the person I did a reading for the day before. It was their mother who had passed away. And they had messages for me that they wanted me to deliver to them. So
Mm,
that was really cool. I
that
almost
is
felt
really
like an
cool.
episode of like The Ghost Whisperer or something, you know? It was pretty cool.
Oh my God. Well, okay. Okay, that's fantastic. I love that. I really love that. And we all want to think about our loved ones
Mhm.
still coming through for us and just still being invested in our lives and all of these things that we have going on. I know that I I have people that are still with me and it really is such a comfort to be able to have those messages. So what a gift that you're able
It
to give
Thank you.
people.
It is. And that's honestly why I do what I do, because I worked in social work for a long time,
Hmm.
and helping people has always been in my nature, always. However, I got really burned out because I give so much of myself to situations and to people. Um, this work allows me to help people in a way that really is conducive for them,
Hmm.
and it's just so great because not only if you would like to find out if, ones that you loved that passed are with you, or if they're okay, if they're happy where they're at, and even if you need some like life guidance, with your job, with your living situation, your relationship. I mean, the answers are endless, and I love having that ability to be able to help people with that.
That was really cool. I'm not gonna get too personal about the readings that you've given to me, but I will say that I had just been having this inkling that there was, somebody kind of had it out for me. I just was feeling that. And uh when you were doing that reading for me, It was so nice to just have those concrete answers because, it's obviously I want people to like me. I don't want anybody to have it out
Right,
for
you're
me,
a
but
Libra. Yeah.
I am a Libra. I just want to be liked. Um, but it is really nice to just have those clear cut answers. And, I can deal with somebody not liking me, but I just want to know it, and I want to be able to like start, okay, putting my own protections in place and starting to, kind of batten down my hatches. And it was just really nice to have
To
that
be
kind
able to
of
pinpoint.
decisiveness. Yeah.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Um, so you do pendulum readings for people in person, but you also do these online as well. So where can people find you if they wanted to have a pendulum session with you, and what does that look like?
It's so they can find me at calendly.com/ the wandering soul writer. And it's super easy. If you type that in to Google, it'll automatically pull up the
Mhm.
Wandering Soul Writer, Dani Johnson.
And I'll
And
put this in the show notes and in the episode description too.
thank you. And there's just two links, a half an hour session and a 45-minute session. And you just click on whatever one and it'll show you the available hours and days. And then you just schedule, pay, and yeah, it's really smooth, easy.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And what if people wanted to know a little bit more? Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
I almost forgot. I wanted to bring this up. So Miss Dani Johnson is a writer, published 2 books of poetry or 3 now.
Uh, three, working on poetry book 4 and first novel right now.
Okay. All right. So we will put links to all of that in the show notes as well. But on your socials, you frequently post um, poems that you've written.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean frequently, just about daily. Um, but you also have just a little spicy alter ego. Um, and I'm gonna just call a spade a spade. Dani writes erotic poetry. It's very nice, very zesty, very spicy. And tell us a little bit about that. First of all, you don't have to tell us. You don't have to tell us anything you don't want to tell us. But how has that expression come about?
um, for a long time, I felt I was really torn between what was okay to feel and what brought shame.
Hmm.
And the more I worked through that, the more I realized that my sexuality isn't anything to be shameful of. And honestly, writing about it made me feel that much more like hell yeah.
Hmm.
Like, so yeah, I got tired of feeling weird about, you know, a kink or expressing myself that way. I had always wanted to. And then one day I was just like, "Mm, I'm gonna do it.
Bucket.
Yeah, fuck it. It's fine. I'm gonna do it." Yeah. And it's very freeing. It's
I
very
love that. I feel like as a woman, as a witch, just as a human being in the year of our Lord 2023, there still is so much pushback against sexuality as we've all felt it to differing degrees, but it really just does feel like we are so repressed, not necessarily oppressed, depending on your background and where you live, but we're very repressed. And it's so frustrating because sexuality is such a huge source
Mhm,
of personal power, not to mention manifestation power.
mhm,
um and that's one thing that I have absolutely adored about your about that kind of poetry that you're writing is that it really is it's unapologetic, doesn't even cover it. It's just open. It's not about being in your face. It's not about, trying to offend or trying to shock. It's not any of that. It's just about being open.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like the more we can take ownership of that and the more that we can lean into that, just the more power we're really going to be able to touch, to access.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. Thank you so much. And before I started the that poetry page in particular, um in 2014 I had created a dance class, kind of dance. You call it a dance class. It was called Tone to Tease,
Mm-hmm.
and I choreographed all the routines. But what was beautiful about this class was it was floor routines, chair routines, standing up routines. And then, of course, I threw in, like 3 songs in the whole class that specifically focused on abs and butt and thighs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest were so sensual that it, and our clothes were on.
Mm-hmm.
We were barefoot, but our clothes were on. And I taught that class for 6 years, and I cannot even begin to tell you how empowering it was to teach that class, to be so vulnerable with our movements. And yes, every person whose first time it was in the class they were so embarrassed, like,
Mm-hmm.
who's looking at me, who's laughing at me. No, homegirl, we laugh. And even homeboy, because everybody was in there. We laugh at ourselves. We're silly together, but we're
Mm-hmm.
also sexual beings. This is
Yes.
us, and we're getting a workout at the same time we're feeling ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like Nicki Minaj, like, I'm feeling myself. So yeah, and that really just kind of got the ball rolling. And then during COVID, I taught that class virtually,
Mm-hmm.
and by teaching it virtually made me record teasers that I shared on social media. And I was like, look at me putting myself out there, like, with these erratic movements
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. Like, yeah, it was something.
I love it. Well, I love it. Well, so let's okay. Before I let you off the hook, then where
Mhm.
can people find you online? You've told us wanderingsoul.com is no. I'm sorry.
It's
You just tell me.
yeah, no worries. So for the readings, the pendulum readings specifically, those you can schedule at calendly.com/the wandering soul writer.
Hmm.
And then for my writings and things like that, it's just the wandering soul writer at Instagram and Facebook. And for the erotic poetry, that one is the tasty poet.
All right. Cool. Because we're putting it all on there. Um,
Yay.
Fantastic. All right. And I'm also going to put links to your poetry books as well. Your poetry, they're
Oh,
anthologies.
thank you.
So I'm going to post links to all of that as well. So thank you very much, Dani Johnson,
Yes, thank you
poet,
for having me.
witch, vixen, pendulum reader, psychic, all around lovely person.
Thank
Um,
you.
Thank you very much for
Yeah,
being with
thank
me today.
you.
I've loved every minute of it.
I did too. This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dani. All right. So